And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo.
And I'm Miss Joan Marie Musi.
And our guest is Anna, returning, a violinist and a composer, who's here to talk about her latest record and some other work that she's been doing. And we're looking forward to talking about that with you, Anna.
Thank you.
And,
yeah, welcome back.
Welcome back to Let Them Talk.
Having me back.
Great. And see, last week we had a guy who ate a light bulb. This week we have a concert violinist. Talk about unique.
Talk about range.
Range, right.
Diversity. Hey.
All interesting people.
So,
right.
Anna, tell us a little bit about Reflections, your new record.
Where do I start? It's a
How
long
did it get
story.
started? Yeah, how did you start to do the project?
Well, Reflections is result of my long time collaboration with many wonderful artists. It reflects my artistic life from the past several years. Also includes two of my original compositions.
Fantastic.
And my piece actually, the CD is titled by one of my
Well, I
works.
remember at the New York Times Center where you had your last concert that we talked about here, that a lot of the pieces were premieres
Exactly.
by women composers
Exactly.
that were written particularly for you. So it's a very interesting show. And do you have any of the same composers on this CD?
I have actually a lot of the same composers on the
Wonderful.
CD. Again, there are several pieces on this recording that are written for me. Two pieces written by me, and there are a couple of other works. Actually, one of them is the actual live recording from the Times Center
Oh,
concert.
excellent. Right on.
That's a work by composer Yves Beglarian, and other works are studio recordings that I have done
Okay, great.
afterwards.
Now I know you also collaborate with a choreographer who does many of your pieces for the live shows, and his name is Take.
Take Ueyama.
Yes.
He's artistic director of the Take Dance. It's a New York City-based contemporary dance company. And interestingly, three of the works that are on this CD have been choreographed by him.
Oh, wonderful.
Most recently, his new dance Flight was using the sole piano version of my composition Reflections, as well as work by composer Alexandra Vrebalov. The piece is called The Spell 3, and that's one of the works that was written for
Oh,
me.
fantastic. Now tell us a little bit more about the composers. Are they all women? Are they all from the United States? What is the background of some of these people?
There are six women composers, 7 works total. Half of the composers, including myself, are native of Serbia.
Oh, interesting.
Serbian born.
Okay.
And there is a, so maybe it would be nice to mention the names.
Yes, of course.
Other composers are Katarina Miljkovic, who is a Serbian-born and Boston-based composer. Her work, White City, was written for me, and it is dedicated to the city of Belgrade. Alexandra Vrebalov, who is also Serbian-born and a New York-based composer. And then there is composer Svetlana Bukvic-Nikos, who is from Bosnia and Herzegovina, but she is also now based in New York City. And her work, called Before and After the Teke, that's the work that I commissioned and performed actually so far on the 3 different continents, very often together with Svetlana. And there are 2 American-born women composers, Yves Beglarian and Margaret Farley Kennedy.
All right. Wonderful. Now, are they all just for the violin, or do some incorporate other instruments as well? Or
all the pieces are written for violin. There is one piece, my own work, violin and piano.
Okay.
There's another work for violin and piano. There is one work that's also my work for violin solo. And the rest of the pieces are for violin and electronics.
Oh, okay.
And in a concert version, a lot of them incorporate visuals too. So it's kind of multimedia character.
Which I loved about the show that we saw. It was so visually beautiful and so unexpected, because you think you're going to see a music concert, and instead it's a music concert with plus all these visuals. And of course, at the New York Times Center, that stage is so amazing, because you can pull up the back, and then there's all
Exactly.
these birch trees, and you use that for projections as well, and it
Exactly.
gave this like layers to it. It was really a stunning theatrical presentation, I thought. So.
Thank you. That was just a really incredible experience. It was like a great a space, a great hall to
Beautiful.
present this kind of program.
Yes.
And I could do so many different things with it. And it helped enhance every piece.
I think so
bring it
too.
to the most, the most beautiful level, which was really great.
Now let's talk about what you have coming up too, because we want to be able to get it out a few times. You've got the CDs come out. You've got a couple of release concerts that are
correct.
coming up. Okay, so there's one on November
7th.
7th.
That's the first New York City CD release event. It's presented by Composers Collaborative. It's at Cornelia Street Cafe, downtown in Greenwich Village, and November 7th at 6 p.m. And actually, this coming season, I am artist in residence also at the Composers Collaborative series called Serial Underground. And this is my first appearance in the series, and that will be the CD dedicated to the new CD. And then the second event is on November 10 at 7:30 p.m. This is at Lincoln Center's Rose Studio. This event is sponsored by the Consulate General of Serbia in New York City, and it's another great CD release event.
Now, for people to find out more, they could go to your website.
Absolutely. For people to find out either about my new release, my new CD, or about the upcoming events, they should visit my website. It's www.annamilo.com.
Okay,
That's www.ANAMILO.com.
And everything's listed there. And you can
Okay.
find out more about Anna there too, because
Right.
she's got a bio up, everything.
Right, we'll talk about that. Now, let's talk about the first thing we're going to show, because we're going to present some video of you playing, and tell us a little bit about what we're about to see.
We're about to see a world premiere of my work, Reflections.
Sure.
This is the title piece of the CD.
And this is your own composition.
This is my own composition, and we premiered it at the Carnegie's Weill Hall in 2009, and this is the very first performance of it.
All right. Wonderful. Right, that was fantastic.
Thank
Beautiful, really beautiful. So I wanted to ask you kind of an odd question, like how many violins do you have? I just wonder, does a violinist have one or do they have several?
Well, that all depends, but it's interesting you're asking me that because I have 3 violins so far.
Okay.
One of them is electric violin.
Oh, that's interesting.
6-string Viper electric violin, and actually that violin is going to become part of my next project.
Okay.
And I have 2 violins.
Acoustic
violin. And actually, the violin we just heard has been my main instrument for the last couple of years, but I sometimes use the other violin too.
Okay.
So.
And do you practice with one and play in public with another, or no?
Not necessarily. I mean, it all depends on what is required. You know, like if you're a Broadway musician, they often do that. They have one violin just taken to shows, and then have their more expensive violin for other occasions. You know, it all depends. I do very different kind of stuff, so it all depends on the project.
And what you're doing.
Which is the most valuable of your 3 violins?
That's hard to say
The
because they're all
electric
dear
one?
to
Yeah,
me.
all right.
Yeah,
So
you
for
know.
you,
You don't put
right.
money
Has
cash,
nothing to do with that,
Right,
right?
right.
That's
Money
great.
can buy me love.
Not even of a violin.
Right, right. Well, when you an electric violin, when you do you have the same? You know, I don't know much about violins, but like the varnish, the design, the who made
Does
it.
it look the same
all
as
those
a
are
regular,
important.
as an acoustic?
You're talking about the electric one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or can you go in and get any electric of the same? You know.
Oh, there's so many different kinds. Just like acoustic violins, there's so many different makers from the you know, like older violins to the contemporary makers. That way, like there's so many kinds of electric violins. The one I'm using is made by Mark Wood, and it's a very interesting instrument, and I look forward to.
Well, how about your 2 acoustic violins? What's their history?
My main acoustic violin is a modern instrument made by Japanese maker Hiroshi Izuka, and my other violin is antique instrument that actually sort of had 2 undefined makers. Sort of different books would say one said it's French made, one said it suggests that it's German made.
Oh, that's
so
interesting. So there's some debate
And it's
about
hundreds of
this.
years old.
It's a couple hundred years old.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, what's the difference between a modern violin and an old one? Do they sound equally as good, or do they sound different? Or
They do sound different, but you know, again, this is just like people. Instruments have their own souls,
Of course.
and so they have their own stories, and also it depends who plays them. You know, maybe the way I sound on my instruments
Would be
not be the
completely
same.
different.
Exactly.
if-
That's why people, like musicians, get very personal about their instruments. You know.
Of course.
So Anna, we have Reflections is your new CD that's out there, and we're going to be talking about that here. I'm going to hold it a little closer, maybe to the camera, so
good, so
folks can get a
people
good
can
look
see
at
it,
it, and
yeah.
I'm sure they'll know how to get it if they need to. And you can see it's called Reflections, and our guest is Anna.
And the website is anamilo.com. That's ANAMILO. And that's where you can get more information about the upcoming events and about the CD.
Yes,
So-
tell us a little bit more about the upcoming events. What's happening?
Well, I will be mostly presenting repertoire from the CD. The great thing about them is that I will have a lot of artists who I collaborated with, including composers and choreographer and others will be present
Great.
at either one or both events. And this also, my guest pianist for both events is a wonderful pianist, Kathleen Supovi. And what is really great thing about those 2 events is, besides the fact that I'm going to present and perform some of the works, is that I will have a chance to share some of my CD journey with the audience
good.
that attends. This is just so interesting and so, to me, it's so endearing, and the whole inspiration and everything.
So you did most of it in the studio. There's one live piece, but some of it you did in the studio. So tell us about that. How did that all come about? And
Every piece is like is a different story,
Oh, that's
story on its
fabulous,
own,
yeah.
and this is something that that is like so interesting for me. And what is even more interesting about this whole project is, you know, I somewhere deep in my mind always kept this idea, and also like I wanted to really make a recording, right?
Sure.
And but the whole thing, how it came together, sort of came together organically. And
Oh,
this
good.
was such
It's
a
like
wonderful
magic.
thing. Exactly. That was such a great thing. And then at the very end, like now that I look back and I hear every work, and I think back about all the experiences that came along with all of this. Somehow it all makes sense.
Okay.
It's one of these things when like the universe takes care
Right.
of you know of you, and it's just so great.
Now, Anna, tell us a little bit about what we've been discussing is how your performances are not playing music alone, but also involve choreography and other things, visual aspects. And your choreographer, tell us a little bit about him and his contribution, because we're going to be looking at his work in a minute.
Yeah. Well, it's just so.
Take, let's say
Right.
his name.
Take
so everyone
Ueyama.
knows who we're
Take
talking
Ueyama.
about.
Yeah.
Working with Take has been just such a inspiring experience, and like with any other artist, it's not that I would diminish anybody else, but I'm just saying, to work with to such a talented and musical choreographer, I think it's such a wonderful thing for a musician or composer. The way he hears the music, the way he creates movement to it and responds, the way he dances, or his dancers, he has a wonderful dance company, the way they dance to it is just so incredible to see, to experience that. And I was very fortunate to have both experiences. I was both composer of the works that he choreographed to, and performer that performed along together with him,
yes, being
or
on stage
with
together.
other members of his company.
Pardon me, what's on the video we're going to see in a moment?
The video is that's excerpt from actually one of his newest works. It's a large work called Flight, and this is the first section that uses solo piano version of my work Reflections, and actually Take is dancing.
Oh, fantastic.
He's a choreographer and
And it's
dancer for this
interesting that
section.
it's called Flight because
Flight.
yes, he and his company get up in the air. That's for sure.
A lot of
They get off the
a
ground.
lot of jumping and flying around. That's true. Yeah.
So we'll go there and we'll watch that right now. It's about a minute or so long.
Okay,
we're gonna
great.
write that now.
Take Ueyama. Well, that was incredible. Take is such an amazing choreographer, such an amazing dancer. We learned so much when he was on the show. I mean, he told us about was a baseball player for a while, and it's just so interesting. And of course, dance is so athletic. So, Well, one more thing I wanted to ask you about the CD is, do you have a record label? Is this being done independently, or it's done through a record label? How did that all come to pass?
The CD is released through Innova Recordings.
What is it called again?
Innova Recordings.
Innova, okay.
Innova is the label of the American Composers Forum, and it's based in St. Paul, Minneapolis. And the CD is distributed through Naxos of America, which is like the largest distributor of classical and classical contemporary music in the world.
Fantastic, yeah.
So, you know, when I started, thinking about what to do about, like, the next step came for this CD to grow, like the whole production. And I sent my proposal to several record labels. And Innova was one of the labels that responded with a positive answer. They were very interested in releasing the album, and I thought through it a little bit, and I just thought that that would be a really good fit.
Yes.
What I did not know at that moment is how great experience that working with them would it make.
Oh,
because
fantastic!
Because the whole post-production came a few months later, and it's just.
And did they have studios in New York, or they rented you a place in New York to do it, or how did that part?
Well, that whole part was on me, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
You take care of that.
Of that part,
yeah.
and once the CD is ready for actual post-production,
then they come in and help you.
in, exactly.
As we sort of like are getting towards the last few minutes of the show, you wanted to mention those folks who helped you and collaborated with you, and why don't you take a moment to do that?
Yeah. Well, there is a lot of people.
There's a lot to mention.
Where do I start from? Well, I would like just to simply express my thanks to all the artists who were involved in this production and who collaborated with me, all the artists who performed my works with me, and my record label. It's a real blessing to work with them.
And it does take a lot of people to put a project like this together.
But you know,
amazing.
what I really feel about this project is that it was sort of a labor of love from many people. And it makes me extremely happy, and it's such a you know, it's experience for life.
And I know you were able to dedicate the album to your mom, which is a big deal too.
Yeah, that was a big inspiration. It was partially, I mean, the big inspiration for my own piece, Reflections. Actually, my mom, who passed, but actually in 2000, and she basically encouraged me to come to this country to follow my dream, and I just it was so easy to get inspired from that, and actually
now to have an opportunity
to actually dedicate
it and say
with all these
you.
wonderful artists and women composers, and so I'm really happy, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity.
So Anna, again, your website?
My website is www.annamilo.com. That's ANAMILO.com.
And I know we have another tape, a couple minutes left. Would you like to describe what we're going to watch?
Exactly. We are going to see excerpt from actually the multimedia concert at the Times Center, and some of the works from my CD are performed. And I'm not exactly sure what part are we watching, but you know,
it's from that concert.
From that concert that we just talked about early in the show, and
that we were talking about the last.
Well, Anna, thank you so much for coming. It was a great show.
It was fantastic. I love that piece that was showing as we faded out. It was such an incredible piece. But everybody, go to the website. Try to go to one of the shows because you'll really, really enjoy it. So it's annamilo.com to get more information.
And thank you for joining us, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we'll have any time.
It's a pleasure.
You're always
Yeah,
welcome.
it was
Thank you
really
very
fun
much.
to
And we'll
see
you
you
next
again.
week.
All right.
Yes.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk about postcards next week.